Dom Turner from the Backsliders. Welcome to Blues on the Hill.
Hey Baz, how you going?
I'm going well. So, you were the founding member of the Backsliders.
Yeah.
Where does the name come from? Great name.
It's probably a name that doesn't have as much meaning in Australia as it does have in America. It's really a religious term that was and still is in common usage in Southern American religions, Methodist, Baptist and Baptist religions. It basically means somebody who was like a religious person and then started gambling, drinking and all of that.
Okay.
Actually, I've got to get this in the right order. Sorry. Starts off as a drinker, gambler, gets religion, but then goes back.
Slides back.
Slides back, yeah.
Being a backslider.
So, but the concept is, if you're a blues musician in the early days in America, from the heyday of early blues musicians, you couldn't do both. You couldn't, what they said, serve the Lord and serve the devil, because it's the devil's music. So anybody who plays blues, really, in those days, was a backslider, because most of the musicians grew up going to church.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where it comes from. To give you a really direct answer, there's a Lead Belly song called The Backslider, and that's when I heard that, and he's interviewed in this song. It's a Library of Congress recording, and he talks about backsliders,
And that's where you got it?
That's where we got it from, yeah.
Okay, so who was in the first ever Backsliders lineup, and what was the concept you were looking for when you formed the band?
Well, the first question in terms of the personnel was, it started off, before we even had the name, it started off essentially as myself and Peter Burgess on percussion. That was it. He was mainly playing washboard and percussive drums, snare drum and small kick drum and things like that. So that's how we started rehearsing. We then had a harmonica player. Very early on, we got in Rex Hill on harmonica. I'd been playing with Rex for quite a number of years prior to the start of the band in a duo. So Rex is a wonderful harmonica player. So that became the core of the band. In saying that, though, the gig, not our first gig, but one of our very early gigs that got us a record contract, which helped us make our first album. We actually did as a duo because Rex wasn't available, so we did this gig as a duo. But that was the core, the three of us.
Okay.
And the concept.
Yeah.
Okay. The concept was, I'd been travelling for most of '86 before I started the band. I was travelling in America, and I've always played blues. I've been playing blues since the late '70s. So, but I noticed in Australia that there was really two kinds of blues acts. There was the Chicago full band thing, drum, bass, couple of guitars, harmonica, whatever. There's that, or kind of soul-y stuff. Or there was the acoustic solo or duo thing. And when I first started out playing in the late '70s, the acoustic duo thing was playing normally in wine bars, smaller venues, stuck in the corner, very bad PAs. People talk over it, kind of ignoring it. And in my mind, I thought that's not where this music came from. This music was kind of raucous, and even if it was acoustic or whatever, it was. So what I wanted to do was present that early form of blues in the same format, where you could walk into any pub, you could play before a punk band and still cut it. That was the idea. I mean, that's really what happens and still happens today in particularly in North Mississippi. That's the sound. It's fairly raucous, and it's based on acoustic music, but it blends the two.
So over the last 28 years, how much have you changed or tweaked the Backsliders style?
Yeah, we've kept changing, but we are essentially at the core of the band. The core of the band's music is really probably one album, which is an album that was made by Mississippi Fred McDowell and Johnny Woods, an album that was recorded by George Mitchell, and it was like a field recording sort of album, but harmonica guitar with foot stomping kind of thing going on. And that's really at the heart of it. I mean, Fred played that record acoustic, but generally when he played live, he usually played electric guitar. And he's from North Mississippi, which is where that kind of the grungier sound comes from. So that's at the core of our music. So early on, we were much lighter. We did a lot of very acoustic-based stuff. Then a lot of other bands started cropping up doing the same thing. So we thought, I started writing a lot more then. I've always been a songwriter, but started writing for this band. And then as time went on, when the percussionist Peter Burgess left in 2000, Rob Hurst joined, and the sound changed again. We started writing together. We're a lot harder now than we were, I suppose. But even saying that though, in our set we still include a completely acoustic component in the set now. So you've got to keep changing.
So can you remember what the blues scene was like when you started? Who was around?
Well, I come from Sydney and grew up there, so when I was younger I was going to see bands like Chain, of course. Chain used to come and visit. I used to go and see them all the time. The Cyril B. Bunter Band, who are just on tour again at the moment actually. The 4-Day Riders. I owe a great debt to the 4-Day Riders, I feel, because the 4-Day Riders were a kind of band that would always support younger musicians. I was younger then, and I mean I used to go and sit in with them and that sort of thing, which was a great honour to sit in with musicians like that when you're younger, cutting your teeth essentially, So but who else was around then? Kevin Borich as well.
Still going strong, just released a new double CD.
Yeah,
which is great.
That's great. So there's all of those acts, but there's also one big influence for me was a guy from Sydney called Gypsy Dave Smith, who was a solo acoustic guy, played a dobro, wood-bodied dobro guitar, primarily finger-picking style guy, did a lot of lead belly, that sort of stuff. That's kind of my thing. He moved on he lives in the UK now, still plays great. He's really good, but he was a big influence. He used to play the little pubs around, and I used to go and see him all the time. I learned a lot from him.
So around about 2000, Rob Hurst from Midnight Oil joined the Backsliders.
Yeah.
What's he brought to the band? Has it changed the sound, or was it just...
Anything, any person, any new person that comes in is going to change the sound, that's for sure. The way that, Rob, we had a history before then, because I already was working with Rob in one of his acts called The Ghost Writers. I was guesting on their albums, and if I was around, I'd do some songs with them live. So we had a musical background already. What Rob has brought, I suppose, is the harder edge, but he's also been able to retain the lighter side as well. As I mentioned, in our set we include a completely acoustic component there, and Rob's a great songwriter. That's really added a lot as well, and the kind of vocal thing that he does, I think our voices blend really well together when we sing together, so there's a lot of positives there.
So who's been the biggest influence on the Backsliders sound? Who's
your biggest artist?
Yeah, biggest influence. Just the
Mississippi Fred McDowell.
Definitely,
is the heart of where we come from, And he's like the grandfather of the North Mississippi family tree, and then down from him, like he's the people that learned from Fred and played with him was R.L. Burnside, of course, and I love R.L. and he's writing our sound too, but he gets it from Fred,
Yeah.
It all goes back to Fred and also probably Other Turner, who's a fife and drum player from North Mississippi, and that's, if you have a look at Rob's big kick drum sound, there's an element of fife and drum music in that.
So that hill country blues, keeping that hill country blues sound alive.
That's really where it comes from. I mean, in early days, it was still Fred. It was one of the very first songs we started doing was "Write Me a Few Lines," Mississippi Fred McDowell. We haven't done it in every gig, but we've probably done it in the majority of gigs in our career.
Lord, when you get home, darling, down and rub me up through your line. I said, when you get home, baby, please sit down and rub me up through your line. Lord, that'll be consolation. Lord, be return my worried mind. You gonna find my suitcase. Lord, be the lamp on your shelf. Where you gonna find my suitcase? Oh, Lord, up on your shelf. Well, when you have treat me, Lord, be to get you somebody else. I'm gonna call up Shiny. I might see my baby over there. Lord, I'm gonna call up Shiny. I might see my baby over there. I have a letter this morning, says she, must have been the yoke of South.